hosting. So a few of you, if you've been following the Data for Peace conference over the last few days, you might be familiar with my face. I've been doing a lot of host duty during the conference, and I am one of the Data for Peace conference organizers, but I'm here today wearing a different, on this session specifically, wearing a different hat. I am part of the Secretariat of Data for Peace of Peace in Our Cities. Peace in Our Cities is a network of cities and civil society organizations committed to reducing violence in their communities and creating a safer world city by city. We have around a little more than 30 cities all around the world and dozens of civil society members. And we've been doing a lot of work with a lot of interesting people on different aspects of violence, urban violence prevention, crime prevention, and public safety. And I'm really happy to share a little bit of this work with you, with the Data for Peace community, which I know a lot of our conversations here have been focused on conflict violence, atrocity prevention, and other forms of early warning. But data, technology, and even artificial intelligence also has a very important role to play in these discussions related to urban violence and public safety. So I'm very excited to bring a bit of this here to you. We have a great list of panelists here that I'm excited to hear from them. Let me just say a few words. You know, as a reflection of all that we've been discussing here over the last few days, this has also a discussion that has been coming up frequently among our members in Peace in Our Cities. And we are very interested in understanding how our cities are using data, technology, and AI to improve their public safety and violence prevention strategies and policies. Cities have always been centers of innovation, places where knowledge, resources, and pressing challenges meet to produce new solutions for residents' lives. A couple of decades ago, the digital age and the rise of the smart city made integrating technology into governance an imperative. With the rapid spread of AI more recently, we have added a whole new dimension to that. AI can process enormous amounts of data quickly and translate complexity into something usable, helping us understand city dynamics and gets closer to the root causes of violence. It also lets us zoom in and really understand the hyper-local dynamics of violence. As those working in cities know well, was looking at my mic. Those of us working in cities know well, violence is a hyper-localized phenomenon, and most of violence and crime happens in only a few street segments. So we can really benefit from tools that allow us to understand those concentrated and interrelated dynamics. But those same tools also amplify familiar concerns: the digital divide, privacy, environmental costs, who is and who isn't represented in the data, and a pull towards efficiency over trustworthiness. The title of this panel is deliberate: human-centered and technology-empowered, because we know that for technology to work for the city and all of those who live there, it has to come as a complement and a supporter of holistic, balanced, right-spaced, human-centered, and human-implemented public safety strategies, not as a substitute for it. In the panel today, we'll have the opportunity to hear from people working in cities and with cities, bringing a variety of perspectives to tell us about what challenges they have overcome with the use of data and technology, how they are integrating those tools into their policymaking arsenal, and why it is important that we rethink public safety and urban violence prevention in this new era of AI and tech. More than that, we will hear from those that are working to ensure that the adoption of those technologies does not come as a substitution to the human element that is so crucial in policymaking. Similarly, we'll hear from those that are holding city leaders accountable for the adoption of participatory, non-discriminatory, and human-centered technology. As you listen to our panelists, I encourage you to submit questions to our Q&A box, since we have time at the end for some discussion, and we'd love to hear from our audience. Let me start. I will introduce the panelists as I call them to speak, and I will start with Felipe Mendes. Felipe is head of the Municipal Public Observatory of the City of Niterói, Brazil, where he works with the data production and analysis focused on municipal public order and security. He's a PhD candidate in legal sciences at University Federal Fluminense, where he also earned his master's degree. He has experience in criminal analysis and public security policy and is certified by Cambridge Center for Evidence-Based Policing. Today he'll be telling us how he's be telling us about the Niterói experience and how they are using and how he's using data and technology to support this extremely successful violence prevention and public safety strategy that the city of Niterói has implemented, from through which they have been able to reduce homicides and other forms of violent crime by more than 70% in just a few years. So with that, Felipe, I'm very excited to have you here with us, and I pass the word to you.
Thank you, Luisa. I am Felipe. And first, good afternoon or good morning in my case. And thank you for the introduction and for the moderate this panel. I also want to extend my gratitude to my fellow panelists for being here and for what I'm sure will be a rich and diverse set of perspectives on this topic. It's an honor to open this conversation and bring the perspective of Niterói, a mid-sized city of around 500,000 people in Rio de Janeiro metropolitan region, to this discussion on human-centered, technology-empowered violence prevention. I lead the Municipal Observatory of Public Order, the OMOP, within Niterói Municipal Secretariat for Public Order. Our mandate is simple to describe and demanding to execute, to transform the operational data generated daily by our municipal guard, our urban monitoring systems, and our partner institutions into the evidence that can actually guide decisions about where to deploy officers, how to organize shifts and patrol routes, and how to prioritize the guard's response capacity across the cities. Over the past years, we've built a fairly granular data infrastructure around our municipal guard occurrence records. Tens of thousands of standard entries that allow us to identify patterns that would otherwise remain invisible. Using georeferencing, mapping, and time series analysis, we can pinpoint which days of the week and times of day concentrate the highest demand on the guards, which locations require systematically in our data, and which type of incidents, like urban conflicts, noise complaints, abandoned public space, signals of social vulnerability, actually make up the bulk of our operational reality. These analyses are made available through dashboards that allow managers to visualize trends in near real time and adjust resource allocation accordingly. It also lets us connect municipal level data with the state public security statistics, so that local prevention strategy is grounded in the broader crime and violence picture of the metropolitan region, not just in what happened within city limits. So this data works feeds directly into the Pacto Niterói contra a Violência, a public security policy that brings together the city government, the state military, and civil police, the prosecutor office, and the judiciary around a set of shared actions, using indicators to define priorities. This data integration is one of its central pillars, but is go hand in hand with prevention programs that starts as early as pregnancy, as early childhood. This reflects a core conviction. Violence is not a public security problem alone. It is a multidisciplinary phenomenon that requires coordinated response across health, education, social assistance, and urban policy. Institutions that have historically operated in silos start looking at the same numbers in the same room with a shared understanding that prevention begins long before a crime occurs. But data on its own doesn't prevent violence. And this is where I think the human-centered framing of this panel mattered most. We try to treat statistics as representations of reality, not reality itself. Every indication we publish goes through a process of contextualization. Who is affected in which territory under what social conditions? Concretely, technology plays two complementary roles in our work. On one hand, it supports the response after a crime has occurred, drawing on georeferenced occurrence data and heat maps to understand exactly what happened, where and under what patterns of recurrence, so that institutions can act with greater precision. On the other hand, it allows us to define temporal and spatial patterns in our data that orient prevent policing, using time series analysis and heat maps to anticipate where and when risk is likely to concentrate, so that the guard's presence can be calibrated to prevent incidents before they happen. The goal is to move from a reactive posture to one where data genuinely drives prevention. None of this happen is in isolation, and international cooperation has been central to how we think about this work. We've been working with the Inter-American Development Bank on strengthening urban security data integration, specifically on building interoperable data architectures that allow different municipal and state institutions to share information across systems that were never designated to communicate with each other. And just last month, our team took part in an exchange program with the city of Seoul, looking at how their integrated urban data platforms connect public security, social service, and urban management at scale. Seoul is a useful reference precisely because it shows what's possible when data infrastructure and governance are built together for the ground up, and is pushed to think about with pieces of that model are adaptable to sit with natural resource and institutional context, and which are not. Finally, it say that being part of networks like peace in our cities and engaging with the work coming out of New York University and the IDB Innovation Labs has been just as valuable as any single tool or dataset. If it gives us a vocabulary and set our peer cities to compare ourselves against, and it is constantly reminds us that the hardest part of data for peace is nothing collecting data, is about the institutional trust and cross-sector relationships that let that data actually be used. From Niterói's perspectives, that's the real frontier. Not more dashboards, but more dialogue. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Felipe. Great. It's so great to hear from you. I really want to emphasize that Niterói is an example for the whole world. And I might be a bit biased because I did grow up just next door to Niterói in Rio de Janeiro. But it's so amazing to see the work that the people, that the government in the city has been able to do there and really bring it to a city that was just as violent, if not more violent than Rio de Janeiro, to a city that has pretty low levels of crime where people really do feel safe walking around the streets. And it's so cool to see how you have done this, like you said, right? Using data, not as an absolute truth, but as something that can help us understand the lived realities of the people that reside in Niterói, that make Niterói what it is, and how you're using a broad arsenal of technologies to really complement this very holistic strategy that, as you mentioned, caters from pregnant people to elderly people and everyone in between is really, oversee and is welcome in this strategy. And the city really takes care of everyone and it's producing such brilliant results. So it's great to hear from you. Thank you so much. I am equally as excited to hear from our next panelist, Mimi Stiles. Mimi is the founder and president of Measure, an award-winning social justice nonprofit that's transforming how data and technology are used to advance equity. And I think this is such a crucial point in this conversation. With over 15 years of experience, she is a leader in the field of data justice. Um, she is a Just Tech Fellow and chairwoman of HBCU, of the HBCU AI conference, and she's at the forefront of interrogating artificial intelligence, challenging biases, shaping ethical frameworks, and ensuring AI reflects and serves Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, which is, oh my God, such an important conversation to have. Her work has pioneered anti-racist technology and community-driven evaluation models that center lived experiences as credible, actionable data. Today, she'll talk about the great work she's doing with her organization, Measure, to ensure that cities and local leaders are using technology in a responsible, participatory, and ethical way. Mimi, please come to the stage. I am very much looking forward to hearing from you.
It's the early morning. So good morning, everybody. Yes, again, my name is Mimi Stiles. I am the founder and president of Measure. We're a research and data activism organization that is based in Austin, Texas, in the United States. And when people hear that I work in artificial intelligence, a lot of times they start asking me questions about technology. But today, for this talk, I actually want to start somewhere else. I want to actually start with the people, right? With humanity, if that's okay. Because at the end of the day, every algorithm that we talk about, every data set, every AI system is ultimately a reflection of human decisions. A lot of times people ask me, what is AI? And it is data, patterns, and decisions. It's collapsed thinking. But at the end of the day, what happens though when people most affected by that collapsed decision making is not involved in actually shaping it. That particular question has been really the foundation of my work. Next slide. Um, so I want to first, just kind of start off by giving you this definition. It's one that I've thought very deeply about, right? What is data rebellion? And for me, data rebellion is actually the act of reclaiming control over how data is collected, how it's interpreted, and how it is used. It's actually the belief that communities should not just be simply studied, right? They should help to define the questions, they should help to interpret those findings. Historically, what we've seen is that data has been used in some ways as just for those as an objective outcome. But many of us know that data is not just neutral, right? Felipe was just trying to also giving us that clarity and that understanding and how. And so what we learned is that what gets ignored actually does matter when we talk about data for peace, right? Data rebellion is not anti-data. That's not what I'm saying. It's actually pro-data, right? It's something that where we want to ask questions that help us to build systems where data reflects truth more completely, more holistically, more human at the end of the day. Next slide. And so I would like to actually ask you a question, and I actually put together this worksheet. You can use this worksheet. You can, scan it with your phone or whatnot, and it kind of helps you to make some decisions as you're hearing me speak, and it helps you to document. I'm a documenter personally, right? But how many of you actually feel that AI will significantly affect your work or your organization, or your community within the next few years? Most of us will raise their hand and say, yes, right, like it will. But keeping that in mind, because to be honest with you folks, the question is not about, how will AI change our society, because it already is. The question really is, who gets to shape the change, right? If you think about it that way, when we discuss AI, we often focus on the technical capabilities of it, right? Like it's the zeros and ones, right? But can it generate text? Can it predict behavior? But underneath those technical questions, there's also these really important questions about power. We can't talk about peace without talking about power. And so, who holds that power and who benefits and who bears the actual risks? That is the actual democratic challenge that we have today. It's the most pressing, most urgent challenge that we have today. It's not by chance that I'm wearing this sweatshirt. It's Dr. King's sweatshirt. He said that there is a fierce urgency of now, and this is what I'm talking about. Next slide. The truth of the matter is that if you are building systems without us, you are building them against us. Okay? One of the principles that guides my work is this one is this one right here. And okay, I don't mean that completely literally. I mean that exclusion actually has consequences. When communities are excluded from the design process, systems inherit the blind spots, the bias, when lived experience is actually absent from those data sets, then that's where we become invisible. Community members are the ones that have that expertise. And so that's what I mean when I say that. Next slide. Just a very quick brief about who I am. Really this work for me began with frustration. I actually am a mama of an incarcerated Black man who also faced algorithmic oppression in many ways. And so my work really comes from pain, right? And so for years, I really watched communities of color really participate in studies and surveys and so forth. Yet the conclusion often failed to see them and to reflect what they were saying and what they were feeling in their communities. The data existed, the people existed, the experience was there, but somehow the story really changed along the way. And so that is what really inspired me to start Measure, which is my organization today. It's to really help communities tell their own story. Next slide. We know at Measure that lived experience is powerful data. It's one of the most important lessons, folks, that we've learned. It's not just about, anecdotal data or secondary data, it's data, right? It's when people tell how an automated system affected their lives, that for us at Measure is actually evidence. And too often, our institutions, they privilege quantitative data while in many ways undervaluing or not seeing that lived experience data. Some people may call it, phenomenological data, rich data, et cetera. But the most effective decisions actually do happen when we bring both types of data together. Next slide. At Measure, we use this process called the CARE model. This is a tool that we've developed out with over 400 community members, mostly Black and Brown community members at a historically Black college in Austin, Texas. And we have continued to use this tool, which is now taught in different colleges as well, in order to do research. You'll see community, starting with community. Evidence is also there. And then also we advocate with our community, and we have to ensure that resilience is baked in along the way. We focus not only on the deficits, right, but also on the strengths. That's very important for us. This framework has really become the foundation of our work in AI governance at Measure. Next slide. One of the most ambitious projects that we've been working on today, where I want y'all to really listen in, is a project called Community in the Loop. Many of you have heard that statement, right? Human in the loop, right? Human in the loop, human in the loop. Well, the idea is that humans supervise AI systems. That's that human in the loop. But I began asking different questions around, what if a single human is not enough? What if accountability actually requires communities, right? In Austin, Texas, we've been partnered with the city of Austin, city government, and then also an organization called Austin AI Alliance, in which I also sit on that board as the vice president of responsible and ethical AI. And we started asking questions. So far, we've brought together over 409 community members and asked them, how can AI strengthen trust? Who should be participating in AI questions at the city? Next slide. Let me just tell you really quickly about these findings, and I know I'm kind of going down on time, but across those conversations with those about 400 people, several themes did emerge. People want transparency. They don't want vague promises. They want real transparency. They want human accountability when you roll out AI systems in their communities. Someone has to remain responsible when that system fails. They do not want this symbolic participation. They actually want to be meaningfully engaged when you're talking about creating your AI policies, rolling out AI systems, etc. That distinction actually matters. Next slide. And so the impact of the work that we're doing is that Austin, Texas, feel free to connect with me and I can share with you this framework, but Austin is actually becoming a model for community-centered AI governance. And it's not because we've solved every single problem, like not at all, but it's because we're actually asking different questions, right? Instead of asking how quickly can we deploy this technology, we are asking how responsibly can we deploy this technology. Next slide. And I'll just say this very quickly. We have at Measure, instead of our research ethics, we have what we call our lines in the sand. These are a couple of these lines in the sand that we have drawn when we talk about integrating artificial intelligence. We don't assume that systems are fair simply because they are sophisticated. We have to examine that data. We have to examine those assumptions. We have to also examine those outcomes. And so this is the work that we're doing right now. Next slide. Almost done here. Folks, when I think I'm an Afrofuturist, okay? It means I'm a time traveler. And when I think about the future of AI, I'm actually very hopeful. And it's not because I believe that technology will solve our problems. It's really, for me, it's because people can solve our problems. They can. Um, but not without communities and not without workers. And last slide. I will go ahead and close with this. A data rebellion is not a rebellion against technology. So let me be clear. It's a rebellion against exclusion, folks. It's a rebellion against being invisible, right? It's a rebellion against the idea that communities should not accept decisions made for them. And so I thank you for your time. And thank you also for joining this conversation. Feel free to reach out to me in any way. And just again, grateful about this conversation because we're building a future where technology actually is not the other way around. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And we are grateful to have you here, Mimi. Such an amazing presentation. Our in our next block of panels, we are going to have a lightning talk in the same room that's by Expertise France, which is titled Nothing About Us Without Us, 10 Years of Community-Owned Early Warning Systems in Mali, which I think would be a nice complement to your presentation also. And it's going to take those same principles, but talk about in a conflict setting in early warning, what that looks like to listen to the voice of communities and really let them own those processes. So if you're interested in what Mimi said, I really encourage you to also stay for that talk. Uh, our next speaker is Angel Serrano Galvez. Angel is the data and tech coordinator at LabCo. He has spent 9 years working with civil society organizations and the public sector in Mexico. As the data and tech coordinator at LabCo, a social impact think and do tank focused on security and justice, he leads data and AI projects, building machine learning tools, APIs, and specialized applications. His expertise spans data science, machine learning, qualitative research, crime measurement, public interest technology, geographic information, oh my God, and so many things, with a focus on improving justice administration and crime prevention in Mexico. Today, he represents some of the innovative projects that they are developing at LabCo, working alongside local governments to provide technological solutions to help meet people's safety and justice needs. I'm very excited to hear of all of you, so I'll keep saying this, but I'm very excited to hear your presentation. And I think you're muted, so yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Right now it's sunrising here in Mexico, so it's kind of early, but we're really glad for being here. So I'm going to share a little presentation in order to summarize some ideas. We want to present some of our projects and how do we use AI in order to help people, to help the cities. So really, we are really thankful with you for inviting us. So my name is Angel. I came from LabCo. LabCo is a social impact think and do tank. We are focused on security and justice, and here the do really matters. We don't just produce research. We build and deploy real solutions, working along with institutions. So how do we do that? Using collaborative, evidence-based methods, we work to break cycles of violence and improve access to justice across America. We have been working since 2020, and we have been working about I don't know, 45 projects in about 24 Mexican states. And also we have the opportunity to work in 9 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. We're going to focus right now more on the work in Mexico. So let me give a quick work on how do we work because it shapes every tool that we are building. So we start identifying challenges hand in hand with local actors, never for them, always with them. So we design and implement solutions iteratively, drawing on the national and international best practices, and we are focused on strengthening international institutional capacities from the inside. So the idea is never to just lend them a tool, never lend them any solution, but building along with them. After that, we measure the results. We try to generate evidence and systematize our learnings So the idea is every new tool, every new innovation, we want to replicate in other spaces. And we strategically disseminate the findings in order to support the scaling of the solutions. No, we have the idea that when something works, it needs to be shown and needs to be and can be replicated. In order to do that, we are building a lot of alliances with public institutions, safety institutions, but also with the international development framework, but also with a lot of universities and think and do the tanks across the world. No. So for the initiatives we're going to show right now, they are our key partners. None of this happens alone. We have been working with the European Union, the UK International Development, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Swiss Embassy, the CIDE, and also the institutions where we are collaborating. No? So how does this looks in real life? We're going to show 3 tools. Everyone is focused on a really specific problem, but really massive problem. So I don't know if you're in context with this problem, but in Mexico, there are thousands of people that are missing, no? Those are the numbers. Actually, the state is holding more than 72K bodies in their possession. So that means there is a lot of people that are missing. That it means that there is a lot of people that they are searching for their loved ones. And it's like maybe the biggest humanitarian crisis right now in Mexico, because, it's in Mexico, the searching mothers and everybody tells about the crisis. It's like being death in life. Searching for someone that you love, it's maybe one of the biggest crises you're gonna face. The problem is that identifying the bodies and searching for the people, searching for the missing ones, it's kind of complicated. We have these big and massive methods, such as genetics, such as the digital prints, but not they are not feasible for every single case. So one method that can be used is searching about someone about their tattoos. No, tattoos are permanent, are highly distinctive, and they survive decomposition larger for other individual characteristics. So the problem is that right now, in order to search for a body and identify it by its status, the models needs to go to an institution, and the institution shows them every single photo of the necropsy. As you can imagine, this process is re-victimizing and super traumatic. Just for putting one example, for searching one body, searching one loving one, it's gonna take about, I don't know, 20K photos, maybe more. That means about 2-3 hours about just looking for deceased people photos. It's nothing that should be happening. So what we have done is developing a tool that allows the searching models go to the forensic institutions and ask, for example, my daughter, my son have a photo, have a tattoo about, I don't know, a rose, Jesus Christ, about the word love. And the tool using AI search within all the necropsies and just retrieve them the photo of the specific part of the tattoo. So it's faster, but also reduces all this traumatic process about seeing all these bodies that maybe doesn't matches with the familias. That's one part of the tool. The other part of the tool is if the family comes with a photo where the tattoo can be seen in any part of the picture. The tool such as using the same tech that is being used for face recon. So we are able to identify that. 4 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna be really quick. So this tool right now it's being deployed in Quintana Roo, the place where Cancun it's taking place, also in Jalisco. And right now we are working with Colombia and Guatemala in order to deploy this tool. And also it has been deployed in Zacatecas. Two other tools and two other projects. The second one, we have developed a tool in order to understand and analyze domestic violence files. So as you may know, it's one of the biggest crises here in Mexico, actually. So the problem is that every time a victim goes to a public institution to complain, they open a new complaint, a new file every single time. So the tool allows them to search within the text and also to identify escalation and also a continuation of the violence. So when a public attorney see the file and understand that this is a continued violence and a continued continued violence and violence that have been escalated, they have more tools in order to prosecute the every single case. And also, as you may know, when you prevent domestic violence, you can prevent femicides. So the main target of this tool is actually to analyze using AI domestic violence cases in order to prevent femicides. Also, it detects recidivism and risk signals automatically. The third one, as you may know, there is a lot of violent content that have been distributed in social media, particularly in Mexico. The cartels and criminal groups have been using social media not only to showcase their work, but also to make recruitment. So right now we have more than 100,000 videos that we have been gathering. And we have developed a method using AI in order to extract all the info about these videos in order to portray and characterize the criminal groups, to work with institutions in order to make preventions, but also to make a public data set that can be used by academics in order to understand how the criminal groups are working. It's a method that can be replicated in other latitudes, and it goes to identify, I don't know, the music that they are listening, to identify the weapons that they are using. So it's a really powerful tool in order to understand how does the criminal groups works. Just to finish, and that's the point, we think and we are convinced that AI can be used for good. We believe that AI can be a powerful tool, not for justice, but if it's designed with the people it serves, grounded in evidence, and it's accountable to the institutions, it can really help. Also, it's really important to use it in latitudes or in places such as Latin America and Mexico, where we are commonly like we have a technology backlog. So using the data and being the users about this not only allow us to solve problems, but also to understand them in a better way. I'm gonna close right now. Here is our info. So we're gonna be really glad from hearing about your questions and the comments about the work we are doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm, again, such a big fan of the work that you're doing at LabCo. I think it's really exceptional, a great example of using technology in a creative, innovative, effective, and ethical way to really provide solutions for people that need the most. So I always, it's so great to hear from you. I hope you do connect with Felipe, because I think it'd be great to see some of your work. I know Niterói is maybe a bit southward than your geographic area, but it would be great to see a collaboration. And now our final panelist, last but not least, Nuran Ridlin. She is a crisis preparedness and organizational resilience specialist with more than 15 years of experience in advising local authorities, national governments, and international organizations. She has designed and operationalized emergency operational centers, developed crisis governance frameworks, and led multi-country preparedness initiatives across MENA, Africa, and the Caribbean. Her work emphasizes practical, field-tested tools that help local systems navigate uncertainty, strengthen early warning, and coordinate effectively during crisis. Nuran recently led the development of AI-supported municipal readiness toolkit in South Lebanon, combining structured data, monitoring indicators, and scenario planning with human judgment to enhance decision-making and operational rhythm in a complex environment. And she's going to share more about this experience with us today. So I'm super excited to hear that. Before I pass the word to you, Nora, I'll just say this because I want to hear from our panelists so much, and I didn't want to cut you off. We are not going to have time for the Q&A in the end, and I'm so sorry. But we do have some questions in the Q&A box. So if either of our panelists want to go and type an answer, if you think that you have a good answer, you want to address those questions, please feel free. If not, you can connect with our panelists afterwards and continue the discussions. Nuran, I pass the word for you. Super excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Louisa, for this introduction and for giving me this chance to showcase what I did in Lebanon. So just to tell everybody beforehand that this is an ongoing crisis right now. There are expected solutions, but we're still in the crisis mode. So I will be very discreet with my information. But I also join with Felipe because it's at the municipal level, which I think, and I echo, is very, very important level in the governance. So just next. Just a little bit on the context. I don't know if you guys know that on the 2nd of March, there was an escalation, a security escalation and a degradation of the situation in Lebanon. It was first concentrated in the suburbs of Beirut, the capital, and then it was concentrated in the south, where we had multiple towns and villages affected with millions of people leaving and getting displaced. So at that moment, I was doing some work with the Ministry of Social Affairs. After my UN work, I started working as a consultant. My expertise, as Louise mentioned, is in crisis preparedness and crisis management. So I was very eager to share what I have with Lebanon, where I grew up also. So when this escalated, the ministry told me, okay, we have no time for preparedness now. We need to jump in and just manage the crisis. So I had like a few municipalities, but for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to focus on the municipality that was at the front line. So I jumped in, I got to know the team, and some of the context also was that a few months back, Lebanon had the municipal elections. So part of this team was new. They didn't know anything of the past. They weren't really equipped with a lot of experience. But this had its own advantage that they were open to experimenting or using new methods or hearing what other people do or how can we make things better. So this worked to my advantage, and I was very ethical, honestly, and I told my focal point. So I had a focal point from each municipality. For this municipality that is in the front line, I told her, listen, my expertise is from the Joint Operations Center and the crisis of management in the field. So I'm going to use some of my tools and help you as the situation develops, but the decision will remain with you and your good judgment. So she talked to her team. They're about 15. She is the deputy chief, and she said, "Okay, we're on." And my communication started being with her. So, what was the challenge in the beginning? As many would know, we are facing a lot of communications and miscommunications these days. It's one of the strongest weapons. So, as the situation started escalating, there were a lot of rumors going on about where the targets are going to be, where the people should go, uh, if there are any places for hosting those people. There was a lot of misinformation and confusion about even the evacuation mode and routes. And then this also put a lot of pressure on the municipal team to deliver the services, because they had to think about water, trash, electricity. As you know, Lebanon doesn't have 24-hour system of electricity. They still depend half of the time on generators, which need fuel. So all of a sudden, all these things just, came, flowed on the municipal team, and they were a little bit in confusion. And this also affected their relation with their community and the residents, and it created a little bit of mistrust. So that was a little bit of the context and the background. Next. So what I did, as I said before, I didn't reinvent the wheel. So I took some of the tools I was using in my job or in the UN or in my conflict analysis, and I said, okay, let me just enhance them with some AI. And this was really at the granular level. So we had the tools that I'm listing here, the situational awareness or a chronological log. So I told the focal point, please, I sent her a slide and said, just fill it. You can fill it on a note or a piece of paper, everything that is happening on the ground. And she accepted. And then I was cross-checking also, and she was cross-checking, because I had friends in the UN mission there. So I triangulate this information. I asked UNIFIL if this is correct. She asks Lebanese armed forces who have a barrack there, and we cross-check. And then I take all this information and just give her a monitoring checklist, which we will see in a later slide. And this monitoring checklist is just grouping the information and give her direction. After that, it's something that I do at my level, is generate some scenarios and probabilities. And here it was very simple, like most likely, possible, and unlikely. So then I trigger some trigger lists, and the action comes to them. So I will take a real case, and as Luisa told me, I only have 3 minutes. So the evacuation warning case. One day she calls me, she's frantic. They received a call at the municipality that the non-residents in that town have to leave or they will be bombarding the whole town. This created a lot of animosity within the residents. There were 35 families that lived that didn't belong to this town. They had evacuated from somewhere else. So there was a lot of animosity, and the municipality was really unfocused. So I just produced a checklist for her and told her, please concentrate on this next. And so what was the scenario? We just took 24 to 48 because that was the time that was given to them, that they either let those people leave or they're going to be bombarded. And it was 3 simple scenarios: if they stay, if they leave, or if they stay and become resistant. So I have another tool that is showing on the screen, which is the decision tree or escalation logic, where if this action happens, where do you go? So it's a step-by-step procedure. I think I don't have time to showcase all the toolkit, but this is what we used. And from this, we discovered that the thing that was really important at that moment was communication. So we had the head of municipality that was not very keen on talking a lot. He liked to keep a low profile, and I pushed my focal point to get him out of his cocoon. And I said, no, 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 this will not work. He has to start communicating to calm the situation and reach out even to the people who don't want to leave. So he really came out and took this position, and it really calmed the situation. So we had a few families that stayed, but they also created a community monitoring team that would go around and make sure that nobody outside the town was visiting these non-residents, just to make sure no infiltration of non-government armed groups are coming in. And I think this helped a lot. Next. So the key lessons that I would like to close with is that something that everybody has been echoing is that local knowledge is the real data, is really the granular level that we need. AI does help. It can eliminate some confusion and give a better judgment, but the decision will stay with the people in charge. But they can maybe anticipate and look at uncertainty in a different way. Communication in my setting was a very powerful violence prevention tool, and it helped the municipality move from fragmented information to a coordinated action. But I just leave all the audience with just this little thought that the value of AI in municipalities is not prediction. It is just helping people make sense of uncertainty. And the final slide, I just say thank you. And if you have any questions, these are my coordinates. And we will have the after action review published next week. So if anybody is interested, please reach out and I can share all this information with you. Much, Louise.
Thank you so much, Noran. This was great. I was so interested in hear about your experience, and I was not disappointed. Amazing presentation. I'm so sorry that I will have to unceremoniously end this panel because I have been the host for all of today, and I have been very rigorous with other people's time. So it would be very unfair if I let my panel go over time. So I just have to say thank you so much for all of our panelists. And I really, really appreciate you being here, especially because, as many of you mentioned, a lot of you are in the US, Latin American time. So you are awake so early for this. So thank you so much. And with that, I do encourage the audience to reach out to them because they have so much to contribute, and this conversation could go much longer.